My name is Peter Brennan and I am Chairman of Bid Management Services. This training tutorial will cover three related topics: developing a winning bid strategy, the elements of a bid strategy, and bid management. To succeed in winning a public sector tender is not easy, and the challenge of preparing a bid submission document is often off-putting. The secret of success in tendering is to bid to win and being organised in so doing. I hope you find this presentation useful and practical. This tutorial is part of a suite of training videos we have prepared about tendering and procurement in Ireland and in Northern Ireland. You may wish to view some or indeed all of the other presentations. Once you complete the Tender Training Excellence Programme, you will have the confidence and ability to bid to win. This presentation is based on our new book, Public Procurement Rules of the Road. I really encourage you to get a copy of it, as it provides an A to Z perspective of the tendering and procurement environment in Ireland and Northern Ireland. The Kindle version has over 200 hyperlinks to key documents and websites. You will find more details about the topics I will cover in chapters 10, 11 and 13. There are several distinct stages to a tender competition that are described in this diagram. I will now take you through the key stages of a typical tender process and set out what you need to do so that informed decisions are taken in a timely manner. Any supplier that wants to take tendering seriously should, at a very minimum, have the following in place: commitment at CEO or senior management level. This is because leadership and motivation from the top is needed. Absence of such direction and engagement results in a supplier's bid team wasting a lot of time and indeed effort submitting poor quality and ill-advised bid responses. If a request for tender that is critical to your business is published, and this comes as a surprise to you, then you have clearly failed to research the buyer's requirements in advance. You need therefore to devote resources to researching potential tender opportunities. So, no matter how small, winning a tender gives you essential credentials that you should exploit and market in your search for new opportunities. If you have persuaded one buyer to use your solution, are there others in that space? Also, at least one person within the organisation needs to be totally aware of the procurement equivalent of the rules of the road. Appoint a bid manager. Depending on the size of the company, it is always helpful to have a person in-house who is responsible for coordinating and driving your bid effort. Finally, find an author. Many bids lose marks, lots of marks, because they are badly written. So an in-house author who loves writing is a critical asset to any team. Many suppliers make the mistake of believing that the most important consideration when preparing a bid response is how well it is written or how professional it looks. In fact, the most important prerequisite is the essential work that needs to be done before a tender is published. In practical terms, to have a better chance of winning, you need to have 3 tasks completed before the tender document is published. Firstly, armed with feedback from successful and unsuccessful tender bids and one-to-one debriefings, you and the key decision makers within the company should have completed a constructive but critical assessment of your ability to score more marks. Secondly, you need to keep a watchful eye on your competitors, and in particular, what are they offering to buyers that you have prioritised. Thirdly, You need to target key buyers and be ruthless in your pursuit. A member of staff in everyone's business should be mandated to monitor eTenders or eTenders Northern Ireland's daily push feeds for these new opportunities in your line of business. Ideally, the company's nominated bid manager should have this responsibility. Your bid communications protocol should require that all relevant decision makers, including the CFO and the CEO where appropriate, get a copy of the request for tender notice and supporting documents, with the bid manager providing a short commentary about the opportunity. For every tender competition, you need to identify all the requirements, including explicit and implicit requirements. To do this, use two coloured highlighters. In your first review, highlight all the documents that need to be included in the bid response document. Then reread the request for tender with another coloured marker and highlight all the buyer's requirements. So for every should or shall in the document, mark the relevant section or sentence. If there are options defined by may or could, assume these are implicit requirements and highlight them accordingly. This preliminary analysis of the tender document should focus on 6 issues. 1. The main problems and requirements that must be addressed. 2. The resources needed to deliver the contract. 3. The key elements of the bid response. 4. The appointment of a person responsible for each of the work packages required to fulfill the contract. 5. The buyer's special needs. And finally, 6. Potential risks. For every opportunity, it is global best practice to carry out a structured bid, no bid evaluation at the very earliest possible opportunity. The bid manager should convene this meeting. Invite all the key people who will be contributing to the writing of the bid document, including subcontractors. The bid manager should chair the session and record the findings. At its most basic, a model suited for low value and less complicated tenders, the main reasons to bid, and more importantly, not to bid, should be discussed at length with the key decision makers within the company, or if you're in a bid consortium, with your contract members. The bid manager, having completed the colour code review of the request for tender and an initial assessment of the opportunity, should now be fully aware of all the key issues. Our rule of thumb is that we never bid unless we believe we have a better than 50-50 chance of winning, a high threshold. You need to use a formula to inform your bid and no bid trigger point. Believe it or not, deciding not to bid is quite normal. Bidding every opportunity is often a waste of resources, never mind a frustrating experience. So, bid to win if the opportunity fits your business strategy, that the buyer is aware of your credentials, the price is not a key issue, you have and can communicate a comprehensive understanding of the client's requirements, all potential risks have been assessed, the gaps in skills and expertise have been identified, you can deliver value for money, and you have compelling, unique selling propositions. You should not bid if you're just going through the motions. The boss told you to put the bid in. You don't bid if the risks are too high, or you cannot fulfill the requirements, or you cannot price the requirements. You may also decide not to bid if your experience is not fully relevant to this particular tender. You may also be hesitant if, in winning the bid, this could have a disruptive effect on other parts of the business. Another argument not to bid is that the partners that you need to fulfill the requirements are not in place, or that the timescale for bidding is too short because you've other priorities. Finally, one of the reasons not to bid is your assessment based on evidence that the incumbent is too strong. These findings from the bid/no bid assessment should inform your bid strategy. The most critical issues that need to be assessed in detail in almost every situation, the hard questions, are as follows. Profit. If you will not make a predetermined profit at an acceptable level to the business, then do not bid, unless you have very good strategic reasons for submitting a below cost, at cost, or low priced bid. The delivery of all contracts, regardless of size, involves some element of risk. So these risks need to be fully stress tested, mitigated where possible, and managed. Another question is, can you alone provide exactly what the buyer wants and to the required standards? Do you need to find partners, subcontractors? Do you have a fully informed and well-researched assessment of the buyer's real needs and worry issues, or what we call hot buttons? And what clear differentiators can be developed with supporting evidence to convince the buyer that you have true and genuine unique selling propositions that set you apart from your competitors? One output of the bid/no bid session is usually a list of issues that need to be clarified. Buyers strongly recommend that suppliers always ask questions about the published request for tender. Therefore, it is essential, using the facilities on eTenders or eTenders Northern Ireland, to put questions to the buyer during the period provided for, which is typically a week before the submission date. Bear in mind that the replies will be copied to everyone who expresses an interest in the RFT and will not be kept confidential. So do not reveal any element of your proposed bid strategy or unique bid offerings or pricing ideas in your questions. For below EU threshold tenders, it is usually quite sufficient to decide to bid or not based on the outcome of a bid/no bid assessment. However, for larger, more complex opportunities, certainly bids involving multiple partners, it would be advisable to conduct a full business review of the opportunity. The outcome of the bid/no bid assessment will inform you, on balance, whether to bid or not. That decision will trigger several actions that need to be carried out in parallel if at all possible. For example, all the risks should be identified in the business case and the proposed mitigation measures agreed and then costed. The finance team, or you and your accountant, should start defining the elements that will determine the cost proposal. A series of clarification questions should be submitted to the buyer to probe any apparent shortcomings in the request for tender. And your capacity and capability to deliver should be assessed in fine detail with regards to current and projected commitments to other clients. So our tender tip is very simple. Do not bid unless you believe you have a better than 50-50 chance of winning. This graphic captures the key elements of a typical bid strategy. Once all available information, insights, and competitor research is to hand, you will be in a position to begin developing your bid strategy. What are the buyer's real needs, as distinct from the stated problems? Quite frequently, these hot buttons are not explicitly stated in the request for tender. You should therefore read in between the lines of the tender document to assess what is left unsaid. Addressing these hot buttons is important in selling your goods and services because your acknowledgement and communication of these issues will help you build trust, empathy, and chemistry with the buyer. Suppliers who invest in pre-RFT research will be best positioned to not only identify a buyer's hot buttons, but to integrate these insights into their bid strategy. A comprehensive understanding of the tender document requirements is fundamental to the definition of your proposed solution. In addition, you will need to know the likely response of the buyer to whatever you propose. There are, in short term, three options. You may opt to deliver a solution that is fully compliant with the tender documents, and for many buyers this is all that they want. Other buyers may set clear technical specifications, but in reality want innovation and value for money options. In this beyond compliance scenario, suppliers will need to think through and cost additional features that may be deemed innovative. The third option is to offer variations to what is in the request for tender, where this is permissible. Believe it or not, under 30% of incumbents win rebids. This is a scary statistic for complacent incumbents and an encouraging statistic for suppliers who might otherwise be shy of an attempt to dislodge an incumbent. So the first obvious clarification question is to find out if there is an incumbent, who it is, and how they have performed. The procurement rules are very strict when it comes to re-tendering of a contract performed by an incumbent. The buyer is required to provide the same information to all potential suppliers and not give preference to the incumbent. If not published, ask the buyer to supply information about the expenditure levels over the period, as this will give you a good sense of the potential scale of the opportunity. It is critical, well in advance of preparing a bid, that you are monitoring the positioning, profitability, and performance of your main competitors and their successes or otherwise in winning tenders in your area. You then need to benchmark your business against your main competitors for this particular opportunity. Armed with forensic insights, you are in a much better position to write a winning bid. Knowing one's competitors and communicating your differentiators can make a huge difference between winning and losing a bid. Unsurprising then, companies that do not conduct a competent competitor assessment win far fewer bids. Assuming the buyer knows what he wants, and often this is not so evident, the request for tender should set out the background and then the specific technical requirements of the tender. However, in many cases, the buyer often stops short of setting out a precise list of expected deliverables, key performance indicators. If you cannot drill down to this level of detail, how can you decide how best to resource the contract, never mind price it? Misinterpreting a buyer's requirement will result in you losing marks, as your solution will not be fit for purpose. So take nothing for granted. You may think something is relevant, but it is the buyer who makes the call. And if in doubt, ask clarificatory questions. Deciding on partners is strategically a very important consideration in a bid strategy and is covered in our presentation on framework agreements and bid consortiums. When you have completed your initial assessment of the request for tender and analysed the buyer's requirements in detail, then you should start determining your USPs, your unique selling propositions, which will show the buyer how you stand out from the competition. In determining your unique selling propositions, remember that many companies lose tenders because they focus mainly on what they can provide and fail to set out precise benefits the buyer will gain if their solution is used. Being able to deliver monetized benefits or productivity gains may be your unique selling proposition. Other unique selling propositions include: you have been peer reviewed positively as an industry leader. You have a best benchmarked solution. You are an award winner. You have personnel with above average sector experience. You have ISO certification or relevant standards. You have a teaming agreement with bid partners in place. You have a proven track record as an innovator with reference to previously carried out contracts. You have a capacity to deliver nationwide. You can offer volume or indeed other price discounts. And you have robust risk management processes in place. And finally, but very importantly, you have testimonials. Bear in mind that unique selling propositions can and do vary from bid to bid, so tailor them. And whatever you do not assume that the buyer knows your USPs. While a formal risk register may not be necessary for small-scale contracts, it is a foolish supplier that does not consider the risks involved in the delivery of a contract. An outline risk register, using colour codes to highlight the level of risk, should be prepared for any project of scale and complexity, along with a corresponding risk management plan. As many buyers are not familiar with risk management techniques, the majority of RFTs do not refer to risk, nor do they allocate marks for a supplier's approach to risk management. So do not be shy about identifying potential risks and propose mitigating measures in your bid response. This could be one way for you to differentiate your solution. Risk permeates most aspects of project delivery, so beware and be prepared. Practically every request for tender demands a response in relation to quality control. Yet it is astonishing how so few suppliers actually have certifiable processes in place. It is essential that you not only have the relevant ISO certificates or BS standards for your sector, but that you communicate your approach to quality from start to finish, preferably with reference to similar projects. Also, appoint a named person with responsibility for quality control. If you have testimony from clients attesting to the quality of your service delivery, then include these letters of support in the bid response document. So what is our tender tip? Very simple. Never start writing a bid response until the overall bid strategy is agreed. I will now deal with bid management, which consists of 4 elements: bid planning, bid coordination, overseeing bid writing and editing, and ensuring high quality and on-time delivery. For every opportunity, the bid manager should prepare a bespoke bid management plan that is, in effect, a roadmap to guide the bid team through all phases of the bid process. For every opportunity, you would be well advised to prepare a detailed checklist of all compliance documents and to list these in your bid management plan. This plan should be drawn up immediately after the company decides to bid. The plan should set out a number of elements, including the key elements of the tender, the award criteria, the documentary evidence that needs to be sourced, communication protocols, who does what and when, the required writing style, when tasks have to be completed, when reviews have to be completed, and the document production schedule. It is the responsibility of the bid manager to keep this plan up to date and under close review, daily if needs be. For small value bids, the sole trader or owner manager will take charge of the entire bid response document. As the size and scale of the opportunity increases, it is advisable to put a formal structure in place. A bid manager should be appointed to oversee the process where resources permit, or outsource this function to an experienced bid and tender management consultant. The key attributes of this person are an ability to project manage the bid response process, to motivate the bid team, to provide leadership, and to write and review content. A bid director should be the most senior decision maker within the company who has delegated authority, full delegated authority, to take the decisions to bid based on the business case. Functional managers and directors should be appointed at the outset to take charge of agreed work packages, as set out in the bid management plan. External advisors may also need to be appointed, and you as the bid manager need to identify and source these. For example, a copywriter, graphic and design consultants, a professional photographer, and bid and tender advisors may need to be instructed. Every bid response situation requires careful planning and thought. Here are some of the key tasks that all bid managers should carry out on behalf of their bid teams. The bid and no bid decision facilitation, an analysis of the bid specification, research into competitive situations and market factors, sourcing bid partners, chairing and mediating bid meetings, and I use the word mediating deliberately, submitting clarification questions to the buyer, and the critical issue of bid resource analysis and availability. You should maintain an electronic bid library, so when new bid response documents have to be produced, all commodity type documents and standard materials can be cut and pasted into the bid response document and edited where necessary to ensure that they are fit for purpose. The following documents should be in your bid library: all previous bid documents, feedback letters from unsuccessful bids, executive summary templates, company and corporate information, CVs in short or indeed in long formats, reference sites and testimonials, current tax clearance certificates, your audited accounts, your insurance certificates, and a bid management template. So, what are the responsibilities of the bid manager? Well, the bid manager assembles the bid team. The bid manager plans meetings, takes decisions on the structure, format, and content of the bid response document, assigns writing and editing responsibilities, is responsible for quality control and planning, and for documentation management and version control. And finally, importantly, communications within the bid team and outside the company if you have partners. The final part of the bid response production process is the carrying out of a post-bid submission review with the full bid team. The bid manager should facilitate this review as soon as is feasible after the bid response is submitted. You will need to find out what worked, what did not, and what should have worked better. It is rare that a bid response document is prepared without a glitch or two. Being aware of what to look out for will make the writing and preparation of subsequent bids a bit less stressful. Our tender tip is to use project management techniques to plan, coordinate and manage the bid process from start to finish. More detailed information about the issues covered in this presentation can be found in our book, Public Procurement Rules of the Road. Visit our website if you require any further information.